because we need to talk to Gordon about this. I told you back on Wednesday that Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen had said that they were changing the guidelines for what they were going to do in terms of, well, basically spying on your financial transactions. It originally was $600 and up. Then they changed it to a yearly total of $10,000, which is not better if you think about it. They did have some other provisions that they put in there, such as your regular payroll. If you get a paycheck direct deposited, that would not be counted towards that $10,000. It would have to be outside sources of income that would flag you. Still don't understand what this has to do with trying to catch tax-cheating billionaires, but maybe Gordon can help us out with that. I think we have him on the phone line now, president of the Mississippi Bankers Association, Gordon Fellows. How you doing this morning, Gordon?
I'm good, Dave. I'm sorry about my Bluetooth problems here. We'll call that a Friday and just sort of say, well, if it was Tuesday, it would have been worse. But since it's Friday, Bluetooth wanted to take the day off, I guess. Sorry.
You know what? I can see you and I can hear you. It's all good, Gordon. It's all good. Now, we were talking about this, and this has been a topic of conversation for several weeks, ever since the news came out that they were planning on tracking any transactions, any transfers of funds in or out of your account of $600 or more. And then Janet Yellen came out and announced some changes to that. The changes are marginally better, but it's still not good, is it?
Yeah, the marginally better is a kind way to describe these changes, I think. The big problem with the initial proposal was the $600 threshold. We argue that was such a broad threshold that it would include everybody. And now they've changed the threshold to $10,000. And that sounds like a big change, but if you think about what a minimum wage earner in Mississippi earns, it's well over $10,000, right? The average taxpayer in Mississippi pays around has an income of around $55,000. So $10,000 is still unbelievably low, and is going to capture just about everybody in the state. To sort of make the argument that Secretary Yellen has made that this is now targeted at the wealthiest 1% of Americans is just kind of flat out wrong. I mean, it's not. It includes everybody. And so the change from $600 to $10,000 in our mind is really no change at all operationally for us. And more importantly, for our customers, it's still going to pull everybody in. Now, they've also, Secretary Yellen also said that she's going to exempt certain types of income, and that could be helpful, but one president that said income is, and we have from the Secretary of the Treasury as far as teachers. That's not a lot of detail, Dave. We've talked about since there's still no legislative text for.
Gordon, I'm going to interrupt you because it's still Friday, because now your audio is breaking up on the phone call.
How about now? If I take the Bluetooth off.
Yeah, there we go. That's better. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I didn't want to interrupt you, but we couldn't really understand what you were saying. So I hate asking this of people, but could you go over that again?
Great technology today on Friday. Look, yeah, the $10,000 change is still impacting everybody, right? That's not. That's a change in name only, but operationally for us and in terms of our customers, it still pulls everybody in, and that worries us. The Secretary of the Treasury also suggested that certain types of income be excluded from this, and that sounds like a good idea, but there's so little specificity to this. And you said earlier, we've been talking about this for a while now. This proposal was first introduced in August. We're going on 4 months, and we still haven't actually seen legislative text, right? All we have is a press release, now another press release, and a tweet from the Secretary of the Treasury saying that firefighters and teachers will have their income expelled from this. Well, if you're going to expel firefighters and teachers, why aren't you expelling factory workers too, or policemen? And I don't know what their intent is. We just need to see it. But I do know this. I mean, even if you exclude income from certain people, if they spend $10,000, they're still going to be included in this. So just by excluding income alone, you're not really solving the problem of pulling everybody in. And the argument that the administration is making that these changes now make this more targeted to the wealthiest 1% are just not right. And we're going to keep pushing back on it because our customers want us to. The core of the banking relationship is built on trust between the bank and the bank customer. And if the customer feels like because of some third-party reporting requirement, they can no longer trust their bank, then that is a existential threat for us. So we're going to keep pushing back on it. Our congressional delegation has been very responsive to the Mississippians that have raised their voice to this, and there have been thousands of Mississippians that have contacted members of Congress about this now, not just bankers, but everyday account holders.
One thing that I want to underline, Gordon, and you touched on this a second ago, but I want to make sure we make this perfectly clear because I see so many people on social media and run into people, and they're talking about it, that think this is already passed and it's the law and it's going into effect, and we're not there yet.
No, not even. We don't even have legislative text yet, right? So the House Ways and Means Committee has finished their work on the tax portion of the President's reconciliation package, and this did not make it in that package. And it didn't make it in that package because Americans didn't want it in the package, right? People stood up and said, this is a bad idea. Now, Senator Elizabeth Warren, Senator Ron Wyden, who chairs the Finance Committee, those are two of the most progressive members of the U.S. Senate. They've taken the torch on this, and they're trying to run it through on the Senate side. And it hasn't, again, there's still no legislative text. It's just an idea right now, and it's a bad idea. And so you're right, Dave. I mean, I've heard of Mississippians that have gone to banks and sort of said, I want to pull my money out, I want to close my account because I don't want the IRS to see this. Well, don't do that because it hadn't happened yet. If you're worried about it, what you need to do is let our members of Congress know. And I guarantee you, our delegation is actively engaged on this. There's a bill that was introduced yesterday by Senator Scott from South Carolina that would block the IRS from having the authority to collect this data. Both Senator Wicker and Senator Hyde-Smith signed on as co-sponsors. There was a letter from the House Republicans that went to House leadership yesterday saying this is a bad idea. Our House Republicans were on that letter. So our folks are engaged in pushing back on it. Unfortunately, because this is moving through the reconciliation process, that's a hyper-partisan process, and Republicans don't have a lot of input. And we only have one Democrat in our congressional delegation. But two members of the Florida delegation yesterday, Charlie Crist and Stephanie Murphy, who are both Democrats, both said this is a bad idea, and they oppose it. So there are Democrats in purplish states that recognize this is problematic, and they're stepping up and saying so. So I think right now, if you're a Mississippian and you're concerned about this, the most important thing you can do is express that concern, because it's not a done deal. I don't think it's anywhere close to a done deal. I think this reconciliation process is going to stretch out for months. It probably won't be done until November, December. Even though the president said on CNN last night he thinks it'll be done in the next 8 days. I just don't see that. And so now's the time to engage on it if you're a Mississippian and you don't want your data shared with the IRS.
Oh, exactly. And I just wanted to clarify that because we do have a lot of people that are scared and think it's happening now. I'm not saying you shouldn't be upset about it, and I'm certainly not saying you shouldn't be concerned about it. But it's not going into effect. As you said, we haven't even seen this written out yet, exactly what it would be. So we're not at the panic and put all of your money under the mattress point here.
Right, that's right. There's a lot of fluidity when it comes to policymaking, whether you're talking about at the state legislature or in Congress. And this is one of these sticking points in the broader discussion about what happens to the president's $1.5 trillion reconciliation package. Wherever that top line number is going to matter. If it's $3.5 trillion, then they need funds. If it's $1.5 trillion, they need less funds. If it ends up being $500 million, they need even less funds. And so this piece is how they pay for. Is one of the ways they pay for that. And frankly, I think it's an overestimation on how much money it'll generate. I don't think it's going to generate nearly as much as the White House thinks. But
we're up against the break.
The number goes down.
Gordon, can you hang on through the break?
Yeah,
we lost a couple of minutes of the front. Yeah, so we'll make it up on the backside when we come back with Gordon Fellows, president of the Mississippi Bankers Association. And with us on the guest line and on SuperTalk TV, the president of the Mississippi Bankers Association, Gordon Fellows. And let me ask you something from an operational standpoint. Let's play pretend here for just a moment and say that they do get this through in some form at some limit. Isn't this going to be an operational nightmare for the banks to track this?
Yes, I mean absolutely, and let's hope that it doesn't go through. But yeah, there will be added cost for banks, right? And no doubt some of that will get passed on to bank customers. There are going to be some system upgrades that banks will have to implement. The Secretary of the Treasury likes to say, well, this is just adding 2 lines to a 1099. Well, there are an awful lot of accounts that don't get 1099s right now, and we collect the data that they're going to request, but we don't have it in an actual form right now. So there are going to have to be a lot of systems changes to execute this. There will also be new layers of complication on tax preparation, right? And that will also become a more costly process, I think, for the average taxpayer. So it's going to cost you more for your banking services if this goes into place. It will also cost you more for your tax potentially on both of these, right? I mean, it could potentially cost more for banking services. It could also potentially cost more for your taxes to be prepared every year. And so, the White House likes to talk about how there's all this $3 trillion package is going to be free. Well, it's not. There's going to be costs all over the economy related to this if it goes into place. So to the earlier point, and I'm sorry again for my poor technology this morning, but now is the time for Mississippians that are worried about this to engage in it. And I did want to say too, actually, I was just looking at Twitter. It looks like Senator Hyde-Smith just put out an op-ed opposed to this morning. I'd encourage everybody to take a look at that. We'll be tweeting from our Twitter account later today the letter that our House Republicans signed on to opposed to it, and we'll tweet about Senator Scott's bill today too. So we'll be putting that out there for people to look at. There are good solutions to keep this from happening. And more broadly, Dave, sort of, let's be clear. The Bankers Association, Mississippi banks are not opposed to people paying their taxes, right? We think that if you owe taxes, you ought to pay what's owed. But the idea that the IRS is going to, determine what the wealthiest Americans owe off their taxes based on $10,000 moving in and out of a bank account is really burdensome and creates an awful lot of privacy issues for every American and every Mississippian. And so let's not close the tax gap on the backs of the working class, which is really what this is proposed to do, right? Think about every high school kid that has a lawnmower business, like a lawn cutting business. If he's got $5,000 coming in and $5,000 going out, then now the IRS needs to look in his bank account, and that just doesn't make a lot of sense to me when you're talking about the top 1% not paying what they owe.
Well, exactly, and it would wind up with everything from garage sales to selling things on eBay to anything that you can imagine. And basically what you're saying is, according to the Treasury Secretary, just about everybody I know is in the top 1% of wealth in America, which is what makes this such a big lie that you are starting to see some of the more moderate Democrats come out and go, okay, wait a minute. No, we can't even sell this one. There's no way. And I think you're going to see that movement grow as they realize, there comes a point where you just have to back up and say, no, I'm not going along with you on this. And I think we're going to see more of that.
I think you're right. There was a Morning Consult poll that came out on this specific topic a few weeks ago. It showed 2/3 of Americans opposed to this program. So if you're in the mindset that half of Americans are Democrats and half of Americans are Republicans, if you get 2/3 of anybody opposed to something, that shows pretty strong bipartisan disapproval. There are clearly a lot of folks who think this is an overreach, whether no matter what side of the aisle you sit on or you vote on. And so, like I said earlier, I just think it's key right now that people understand where this is. That it is fluid, it is changing, but it's not a done deal. The voice of the American voter is a powerful thing, and if you think this is a problem, you need to let elected officials know that.
Yeah, and honestly, if you're going to go after the millionaires and billionaires, which is the way they keep selling it, how about you go after them instead of us? Number one, at least do what you say you're going to do and not use that as a cover to spy on everybody, which is what this is trying to shape up to be. But again, one more time, let's make it clear, it's not law yet. No matter what you see on social media, it's not in effect, it's not happening, but it could if you don't contact your Congress people and your representatives and let them know how you feel on it so they can best represent you. Gordon, always enjoy talking to you, my friend, and I will see you at the weekly 1% of Americans Club meeting later today. Everyone's
the weekly
invited.
1% that includes everybody. That's right. Thank you for the opportunity.